Hi, everybody. Welcome. Is this on? Okay. Oh, okay. See, I'm not so tech savvy after all. So anyway, thank you for being here to celebrate the book launch of our 2022 Slappering Hall Press Chapbook competition winner, Tara Flint Taylor. We hope you'll return here, those of you on Zoom and those of you who live in the area next Sunday, as April 2nd, as we have a reading by 9 Broadstone poets who have connections to Hudson Valley Writers Center. So you get a sampling of a lot of different books. I'm Susanna Case. I'm one of the co-editors with Mervyn Taylor and Slappering Hall Press's founding editor, award-winning poet Margot Taft-Stever. So thank you to my co-editors, the board, the Slappering Hall Press Advisory Committee, Hudson Valley Writers Center's teachers and students, and the foundations and organizations who support the center, including the Bydale Foundation, the David G. Taft Foundation, NISCA, and Arts Westchester. And thank you, Christina Papadopoulos and Mariah Lanza, for their hard work who are here today. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Slappering Hall Press, and I see there's a lot of people here I haven't seen before, I think family of Tara, etc., and also on Zoom, perhaps friends of Tara. Slappering Hall Press has been in operation since 1989, which makes it one of the oldest chapbook presses in the country. I was a winner of the chapbook competition in 2002, so I can personally attest to how Slappering Hall Press changed my life. Slappering Hall Press is known for hands-on editing and mentorship. The impact on my poetry career is not an idiosyncratic outcome for Slappering Hall Press authors. Many have gone on to win other writing competitions and receive prestigious fellowships and grants, publish full-length collections, and win literary prizes. For example, David Tucker, his first full-length collection was published by Houghton Mifflin. Sean Nevin's first full-length collection won the Crab Orchard Series for First Book Prize. Stephanie Lennox, another chapbook competition winner, won the Colorado Prize for Poetry, and there are many other examples. Another important part of the mission of the press is its support of women poets. Since 2008, Slappering Hall Press has published a series of conversation chapbooks, poems organized as conversations followed by a literal dialogue between a well-known poet and an emerging female poet chosen by the established female poet. These conversation chapbooks embody poetic mentorship. The most recent one is The Mothers, in which Dorianne Laux and Lila Shatty exchange poems and ideas. In addition, Slappering Hall Press has published 3 anthologies that include the work of emerging and established poets such as Jean Valentine, Stephen Dunn, and Billy Collins. 2 of the anthologies are river-themed and 1 is family-themed. And because of Slappering Hall Press's interest in poetic outreach across cultures, the press published a box set of 7 new generation African poets in association with the African Poetry Book Fund, Prairie Schooner, and the Poetry Foundation. Recently, Slappering Hall Press published another box set of 3 of the chapbooks that won the chapbook competition that had related themes relating to racism, anti-Semitism, and World War II, and other box sets are planned. Slappering Hall Press has also published a collection of Hudson River haiku with poems by Helen Barolini and watercolors by Nevio Mangachi. So later after the reading, some of them are on display and you might want to look at it if you're in the center, and if you're out in Zoom land, they're all online on the website. The Slappering Hall Press publications are distinctive in their design and often use elements such as hand stitching or letterpress covers to add to and emphasize the craft contained within. They're beautiful. They incorporate aspects of art as well as text and have used works by internationally known artists such as Kiki Smith and Romare Bearden. So yeah, please take a look at after the reading. And Margot Taft-Stever will now introduce our first reader, Anne Lauinger.
Thank you, Susanna, for that wonderful introduction to Slapping Hall Press. And I'm going to talk about Anne Lauinger's wonderful new book. Her previous books are Persuasions of Fall, University of Utah Press 2004, which won the Agha Shahid Ali Prize in Poetry. Against Butterflies, Little Red Tree Publishing 2013, which won the Vernice Quevedo Poetry Prize for Women. And Dime Saint Nickel Devil, Broadstone Books 2022, which deserves to win many awards. Her poems have appeared widely in journals including Poetry Daily and Verse Daily, in a number of anthologies and in publications from Abandoned Mind to Zone 3, including the Cumberland Review, Georgia Review, Parnassus, Plant Human Quarterly, and SmartishPace. Her translations from Italian, French, and Latin have appeared in Levania, the Massachusetts Review, and Transference, and recent poems can be found in Glimpse, Lightwood, Southern Poetry Review, and Valley Voices. She is Professor Emerita of Literature at Sarah Lawrence College, where she has worked as a beloved professor for many decades. She also served as co-editor of Slapping Hall Press and as a member of the Slapping Hall Press Advisory Committee since its inception. She lives in Ossining, New York, with her husband, Joe Lauinger, who is also a playwright and professor at Sarah Lawrence College. Two of the great honors for me in serving as founder and co-editor of Slapping Hall Press have been collaborating to choose the work of the outstanding poets who win the SHP Chapbook contest. We are so excited to welcome Tara Flint Taylor this year, and serving with a glowing list of brilliant co-editors who have worked on this quest with me. Before saying a few words about Dime Saint Nickel Devil, I wanted to highlight that working with Anne Lauinger as co-editor allowed me to get to know firsthand her rare blend of humor, wisdom, and intelligence. She is a first-rate editor and copy editor, also a rare combination that I have often envied. When she was too busy with her professorship to continue as SHP co-editor, she proceeded with lending us her unsurpassable talents and advice on the advisory committee. In Dime Saint Nickel Devil, you will meet one of my favorite poems, Girl Reading the Aeneid on the Subway. As I wrote in a blurb, through imaginative insight and dazzling verbal song, Anne Lauinger's Dime Saint Nickel Devil is a multi-layered, clear-eyed investigation of the human interface with the natural world, recasting the great questions with dark wit and originality. These poems consider how the large and small, the godly and human reflect each other. This elegant collection of poems embodies a most beloved form of humor, the capacity to laugh at oneself. The poet writes, quote, "Our alterations are subtractions. No raging star can possibly restore. The stage is getting bare. It's time to improvise." I cannot praise these poems enough. Let's welcome Anne Lauinger.
Oh, thank you, Margot. That was embarrassing. I'm very happy to be here with you in person and on Zoom, and very honored to be the opening act for Tara Flint Taylor's work. So let me begin with a poem of mine from Persuasions of Fall. This is called Without You. It's a kind of a love poem. All night I dreamed I was fixing the flat tires on my 16-wheeler with a salad fork. The night before, I was on the roof in snowshoes. Where will it end? Without you, I'm like a fish struggling into a pair of pantyhose. Without you, the kitchen sink gets all choked up. The hot water runs cold, the toilet just runs, and I can't screw the light bulb in straight, even when it really wants to change. Tomorrow, I must buy a shower curtain for the bird bath. Come home. The cats are witless with grief. Ginger and Freud drool on your pillow, and dim sum chews my toes. Do you think that could be affecting my dreams? You know how you badgered me to change the sheets? It's done. The stripes go the other way. If you won't come back, at least send a postcard and clippings, hair or nails. I track you with pins on the wall map, and I spin yarn from your hair. Whistle, darling. I'll be there. Love gives me wings and a kayak. All I need is your address. Margot was right to single out girl reading the Aeneid on the subway, because the Aeneid, Virgil's Aeneid, is a poem that I first encountered in high school and loved then, and had the good fortune to be able to teach a lot of times. But, you know, it doesn't get around that much these days. So here I am on the subway one day, and opposite me is sitting a girl, college-age girl, and she's actually reading the Aeneid. So here is the poem that made me write. Girl reading the Aeneid on the subway. What she makes of all that myth and destiny is anybody's guess. Other towers for other times. Of course, it's also ours, the 10 Years' War, but she's too young for history. Poor Aeneas, predestined to succeed and mean to Dido, gets no sympathy from most her age. Yet, brushing absently her pale hair from light eyes, she seems to read intently, concentrating from her perch. A sunlit bird, oblivious to this grotto of Sibylline scraps, of earbuds' rhythmic sotto voce boom, of medicated lurch. What's at our backs, the weight by which we're driven, unhinges us, the great ones more than most, who know, though desert bleached and tempest tossed, that to be great is not to be forgiven. Not that it's safer or saner to be small. Look at us, jolted down tracks in loveless tandem, the endless ride to inquietude, our random days without distinction, nights in free fall. She rises, marks her place with a neat white square, and zips in her bag the journeys and the wars. I glimpse her rising still beyond shut doors, fate dangling from a strap to meet the upper air. So quite a few years ago, we came home from a weekend away to discover that our lilac tree, now a moderate-sized lilac tree, had been struck in a storm, and it had been sheared away. Half of it was, and I thought, oh, you know, this tree has to be dead. Half of it was lying there on the ground, and a sort of grotesque remnant was sitting there. I'm passionately fond of lilac trees. They mean spring to me. So this is a poem for spring, which must be right around the corner. I should say that it's a short poem. There's a passage, the last passage is spoken in the voice of the lilac. The beginning is me talking, looking at it. So this is Split Lilac. The finches already avoid it. Limbs dangling, it teeters between elements. What's still standing, root shocked, is only lodged in earth, the ruffled wing of a bird pitched to ground. Air tugs it out of the swarming dark towards a dry singularity. Don't grieve. Revenants need a vanishing, but still the violence of change surprises you, though you were well schooled in my sudden blooms, my perfume. It survived, by the way. I know you were sitting on the edge of your chair wondering, the end of the story. Yeah, amazingly, it survived and it grew. And then we actually transplanted it to another spot and it still grew, and yay, you know, thank God, you know, we're trying to kill nature, but apparently it's not that easy. So, I also, one of the things I've been interested in a spotty way is the architect Frank Lloyd Wright. And I saw a wonderful exhibit more years ago than I'm going to tell you, because, you know, most of you weren't born then, on him. And in particular, his house, Fallingwater, is something that I've always loved. So, you know, that's the house that he built for the Pittsburgh department store magnate named Edgar Kaufman, along a stream called Bear Run in Pennsylvania. So this is a letter that I imagined, which is writing to Kaufman before he's fully agreed to undertake this commission. And there are a couple of lines that are actually quoted from his letters here, but you'll never know, will you? Unless you buy the book. Okay. Fallingwater. Dear Kaufman, are you a brave man? I'm back from Bear Run, yes, but the visit to the waterfall in the woods stays with me. The view is, you have said, your chief concern. Of course, the panorama is sublime. In spring, the falls spit foam in the sun's eye. They throw off diamonds, milk, opaline fire before they drop away. Winter sculpts the water's frozen fall, a black marble mirror, and so forth. Views are exhilarating, especially when they're fortified in stone. Anyone can heap together a tower, Kaufman, or live in one. I don't advise it. Stone eminence breeds a basilisk gaze. To live with things, you have to listen to them. At Bear Run, I listened. How shall I tell you what I heard? A poet might call it music, if one sole note repeated makes a tune. At first, the monotony of water splashing half hypnotized me. Limp as a mesmerist's geek, I listened and despaired. From this onrush, unceasing, undifferentiated, what form could ever struggle into being? I went on listening until the sameness lifted as the heavy gold curtain at the opera scrolls slowly upward after the overture. It came at the end, beside the stream, to chaos, the brutal cry of beautiful unmaking. Each staccato instant, change hammered change, as in the falling water, so in the furious currents occulted beneath my traitor skin. The house I want to build asks daring, not of me, Kaufman, but of you. I shall cantilever concrete slabs over falls and stream, layered like birthday cake. My job's a conjurer's trick, mere cunning. The question, Kaufman, is, have you the courage not simply to look at the waterfalls, but to live with them? Yours most sincerely, F. Lloyd Wright. This is my last big poem that I want to read. And then if there's time, I have a shorty that I'd like to read, but I don't want to overdo here. And this is the closing poem from my recent book. As you can tell, I mean, I'm no philosopher. You got to say that. Not me. In the war between poetry and philosophy, I know where I stand. But I have to admit that I do seem to spend a fair amount of time musing about beauty, what is beautiful and why bother and all that stuff. So here's a poem called Collateral Beauty. It takes an epigraph from a poem by Stephen Dunn called The Past. And the epigraph reads, nothing in nature is a metaphor. Everything is. Let's talk about the imperatives of damaged things. We were lopping away at a bunch of grotesque invasive grass when the hibiscus, in ill-starred proximity to the intended clump, got chopped. Curtains, we thought. But a few weeks later, it gamely bore on one spindly remnant stem more buds than we could have dreamed. The scuttled present is big with futures, ungainsayable. Against all odds, they blossomed. 6 dolly-faced flowers, Pepto-Bismol pink, the size of dinner plates. I'm in love. But that proves nothing. My darling's ends are light years removed from my doting pride. Here's another thing. Sunset confuses me. Luxuriant dying that spreads like spilled paint across night's visibly deepening design and quickens the zenith with a frolicsome bestiary doomed to the insatiable dark. Yet a mere 12 hours later, in the pale wash of morning, it's business as usual. The kid next door saws away and fingers the frets. Traffic hums the tritone. The jay resumes its indignation. I swear only the dailiness of it keeps me from a continual cold sweat. The world is a dreadful place. My naked senses go ricocheting and pinballing around the dings and flashes of the biomass, a landscape of covert urgencies without number. What hope for someone who thinks all the world's a page? And don't tell me thinking helps. It's buff from sparring with the greats, but it reeks of the gym. In all this terror and glory, I supplicate you on the margins, ceaseless ones. I am yours. Let me belong to you by whom I am clothed and companioned until I cease. I clasp your non-existent knees, you powers innocent of augury. You, whose gift it is to be deaf to songs of elegy as of wonder. Thank you. I think I'm going to close there. But you're not getting rid of me yet, because I have the great privilege of, and great burden of ventriloquizing Merv Taylor, who this wonderful poet and esteemed co-editor of the press, who wanted very much to be here tonight to introduce Tara and can't, but he has given us his words. So this is not me, and I won't be the urbane and suave and funny Mervyn, nobody could be, but they are his words. So let me begin by giving you a little biographical information about Tara Flint Taylor and reading some of the things that people have said about her work, and then I will finish with Mervyn's handcrafted introduction. So Tara Flint Taylor's work has appeared in Poet Lore, River Styx, Poetry Quarterly, North American Review, Nimrod, the Spoon River Poetry Review, Word, River Literary Review, and elsewhere. Her awards include second place in the 2011 River Styx International Poetry Contest, as well as finalist in the 2011 Pablo Neruda Prize for Poetry and 2018 James Hearst Poetry Prize. She's a graduate of Moyne College, where she earned her BA, and of North Carolina State, where she earned her MFA. Tara is the recipient of the John LaHey Award in Writing, the Newhouse Writing Award, and the Brenda Smart Poetry Prize. Originally from Syracuse, New York, she lives in Portland, Oregon, with her spouse, painter Joshua Flint. Linda Tomo-Panizzi, the author of The Burning Boat, has written about bone wishing, Tara's prize-winning chapbook. Tara Flint Taylor's bone wishing names the shapes of grief. Quote, a dark umbrella shaken after hard rain. Quote, an iron anchor on the desert floor. The quote, long days of rocking. Then, with nothing but the gritty clarity of her eye and voice, Taylor goes about the hard work of, quote, making some makeshift shelter for the self. From the ruins emerges the indelible shelter of this profound and deeply felt collection. Joseph Miller, the author of Dark Harvest, New and Selected Poems, has written, elegiacal, these poems ride on their images. Saltwater, sea glass, blood red borscht. I admire their diction and shifting focus, though the speaker remains haunted throughout by a sister's illness and the sorrow of loss. She looks back through the shadows of memory, past piles of broken china and, quote, ruinous light, unquote, through the undersea sediment of thousand-year-old plants into the eyes of her younger self, which are filled with wonder and grief at, quote, the shock of ordinary things, unquote. This is a fine first collection. You said it, Joseph Miller. Yes. Mervyn Taylor has this to say, and I'm going to promote to first place what he was going to finish with, that he is no relative. So what you hear, this is not nepotism at all. This is pure truth. There's an insistence to Tara Taylor's poetry that says the wishbone will break in her favor every time, and an ivory to the finish of the painting on the cover that matches the words, line for line, idea and image entwined. I first found Tara's work online, says Mervyn, and I hungrily searched the many journals and anthologies that had the good insight and sense to publish Tara's poems, brimming as they were with images and subterfuge, boldly claiming strategies of metaphor and similes as fruits one should jump the farmer's fence to pick, or the posing of a body near a waterfall to show scale. Of course, why didn't we think of that? My question then was, where's the collection of such poems to be found? Here's someone championing the cause and guise of the poet, examining the relationship to family almost as if that were more important than publishing, the working it out on the page. I looked at the time span, the years, and was hard put to believe no one had gathered them in, and by force or encouragement, found a press smart enough to say, yes, this is. What a happy accident that such a compilation found its way into Slappering Hole's chapbook contest and led to this moment. But here we are, with sea glass spilled all around, and a dinner table whittled down to the stark, broken bone that has moved all the plates aside to take pride of place, rendered by the artist husband who must have shared the ritual of bone wishing long enough to know who would win. So I give you our chapbook contest winner, Tara Flint Taylor. Please welcome her.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Anne, for your kind words, and for Mervyn out there as well. And thank you for your work. It was a pleasure to read alongside of you today. I'd like to thank Slappering Hall and the Hudson Valley Writer Center for inviting me, and for all of the wonderful people who made this possible. Mervyn, Susanna, Jennifer, Christina, Mariah, thank you. Special thanks to Margot for creating this beautiful press, which garners the respect and adoration of the entire writing community. I would like to thank Joshua as well for contributing his paintings to this chapbook, and also thank you to all of you who have shown support and who are listening now, for giving the valuable gift of your time. I am so touched in how you show up. I'll begin by reading a stanza from a Jack Myers poem. The title is Desert is the Memory of Water. This is for Kate. Happy birthday, Kate. I believe whatever disappears or survives or comes into being is a prayer that's already been answered, and that we feel alone because we won't let go of what is gone or changed or hasn't happened yet. Today, I woke in a peaceable kingdom where the fear of death turned inside out into a love for life. If I prayed, I'd pray for that for you. The first poem I'm going to read is called Ordinary Things. My sister falls asleep with the lights on, fully dressed. I take the recycling to the curb, count bottles under a street lamp. Almost summer, but first comes the anniversary of your death. Iron anchor on the desert floor. I'd been reading Murakami when you disappeared. I pushed it aside, never picked it up again. There's a difference between drowning in salt water and drowning in fresh water. A rock pressed to my throat when I learned how you died. I was a child for a second time, and I couldn't stop the tantrum of not being okay, of not knowing what could happen next. Somehow you settle into it, the shock of ordinary things, the dull business of errands and taxes, standing in line at the post office, too bright, too loud, the rain, coming out into the rain, out of the grocery store, arms full with a paper bag, raining so hard it turns to pulp in my hands. This poem is called Nearly This. A man launched himself over Niagara Falls in a pickle barrel. We were on the Maid of the Mist, watched him go over and live. It was August 1985, and I was 8 years old that day. He was 22. After he appeared on The Tonight Show, Good Morning America, I learned we shared the same birthday. So many things have happened since, but in some ways, nearly everything can be explained by this. I think that we connect to stories, and yet we don't share our hard experiences. And it's not only the suffering itself or the loss itself, it's having to continue on and sometimes doing that alone. So this poem is about loss. It's called Saltwater Myths. Always stories. A body found on the beach. A finger in the rubble. A scrap of someone still breathing in building debris. Once I heard about a ship that sank off the coast of Mexico. Friends and wives wove wreaths of laurel to cast on an ocean grave. The cargo of salt dissolved, and the ship bobbed back, everyone saved. Those old men came home. Early spring at La Llorona Beach, a current took him. Somehow this matters. First, my sister's voice on the phone. I need to restart that stanza. I apologize. I got nervous. Early spring at La Llorona Beach, a current took him. It was early morning. Somehow this matters. First, my sister's voice on the phone. Chris is missing. Then nothing but this constant hiss in my ear. They looked for 1 week, helicopters and divers. It took a while to understand there wasn't going to be a body. Years before, in the yellow kitchen on Emerson, Chris burned himself. I heard the pot clang as it dropped. He sank to the floor, rocking, islands of pink, his left wrist splotch, an archipelago. That hand became a permanent face of pain. The cloth, clean and blinding. When we were young, we swam in Green Lake, the bedrock saturated with salt, the bottom brines whatever falls. 1,000-year-old plants and animals linger where sediment tells time like rings in a tree stump. July and August, the water so packed, mothers lost sight of their kids. Lifeguards would megaphone, human chain, and we'd link hands with strangers, rake the lake with our legs. This next poem, I needed to make sense of things, and I just didn't know how to talk about any of it. Comedian Shen Wang, he said that kids reveal truths to you that no one else does. And I think poetry does that too. This poem taught me how to find that truth for myself. The title is Borscht, and borscht is a traditional hearty soup that's very bright red. And this poem has nothing to do with soup, but it's called borscht. Red in the toilet bowl, red on the white sheets, red roses, my least favorite, in white vases in my painted white room. Red beets, red cabbage, red meat, in borscht poured in the cracked white bowl I eat every sour meal in for weeks. I was 40 when I had an abortion, pregnant for the first time in my long sex life, shocked at what my body had done to me. Red garden dahlia, cold white marble table, red clots, white thighs, white padded cotton. I've never been someone who wished for much. Then, this unwanted gift at the doorstep of my stomach, I didn't know how to refuse. How do you turn down the invitation every girl wants to the party? You stay home, sick, you cry, you think to yourself. So many women believe to be a woman is to suffer. Who am I to tell them they're wrong? My husband asks, what's this? An empty pot on the stove tinged pink. It's my abortion borscht, I tell him, and I laugh. Not because it's funny. It's not funny. Nothing is funny. It's just those words feel like a rock I'm trying to swallow. And I'm laughing because I'm out of my fucking mind with pregnancy hormones. People laugh at funerals. They cry at weddings, at births. For 12 days, I was knowingly pregnant. For 12 days, I didn't move, didn't eat, couldn't keep anything down. This was the week Dr. Christine Blasey Ford gave her testimony, the week every woman I know clung to herself. The decision whether or not to bear a child is central to a woman's life, I heard Ruth Bader Ginsburg say. It's central to her well-being and dignity. It is a decision she must make for herself. Herself, under white crescent fingernails, herself, red-cheeked and red-eyed, herself, barely ready for this blood metal awake life. I'm messing up my own poems. I don't even know the words, so I'm trying to cover up. But that's okay, you don't know. Musicians do that too. And then, thank you, Nick. Wishbones have the long-held belief of good fortune so that people harvest the wishbone or the little furcula or little fork from the bird to see if they can get the bigger piece, by pulling it apart and therefore have some better luck. There are phrases, I never seem to get a lucky break, or I'm waiting for my big break, or break a leg. And perhaps this comes from this. I am seemingly always preparing for the end of times and for death. And so the idea of a wishbone, something synonymous with hope and luck and chance, feels deeply necessary just amid the chaos of everyday life. And for me, it's not the wish, it's not the bone, it's the action of wishing. It's the doingness of it that matters. So I'm going to read the title poem, Bone Wishing, and I'd like to thank you for all of your kindness and listening today. Bone wishing. I dreamt the wishbones dry on the windowsill above the kitchen sink, a flock of skeletal geese chevroned against the patch of glass sky. The first time I flew on a plane, I was 25. I'd never been anywhere. It's not like I wished for another life, better parents, my own room, wished I had been born somewhere else, far away on the opposite coast, wished with held breath it would all just stop. My whole body was made of mouths. The wish was nothing but a birthday candle blown on a cake that could shatter and break. I thought that life would always be forked bone, splintering, just before it snapped. I thought it would always break more towards me than away. Thank you so much. Is it Q&A? Oh, I'm introducing Teresa. Okay, sorry. I'm back. Actually, yes, this is the paper. Thank you. Okay. I am delighted to introduce you to my mentor and my friend, TQ Tran. T graduated from the University of California in Berkeley, where she studied with Robert Haas, Maxine Hong Kingston, and Tom Gunn. While attending Queen's University MFA program, while being a full-time mother to her two beautiful boys, she also studied with the current U.S. Poet Laureate, Ada Limon. She has served as Associate Poetry Editor for QU Lit Journal. She was a finalist for the Pablo Neruda Prize, and you can find her work in Cincinnati Review and Nimrod. Edward Abbey said that any good poet must begin with a scientific view of the world, and any scientist must be something of a poet. Nothing could be truer when it comes to T, as she has not only served 8 science support deployments at an ice core drilling camp in Antarctica, but she has also traveled all 7 continents. Everything T does is with the trained eye of a scientist. Everything she does is dedicated to the spirit of poetry. T's work is intimate, powerful, and joyous. She strives for tenderness and connection in a way that reflects how she fully commits herself to community and a culture of care. She has taught me that syntax can be exciting, prosody, intuitive. Poems can be fun. She has taught me that there is strength in collaboration. She truly does possess the ability to communicate to the rest of us a sense of love and wonder at what she discovers, and I am in awe of her every day. And here is a video from TQ Tran. Take it away.
Hello, my name is TQ Tran, and I am honored and grateful to be here, celebrating the launch of Tara Flint Taylor's Bone Wishing. I'd like to thank Slapping Hole Press, Hudson Valley Writers Center, Joshua Flint for the exquisite paintings, and of course, all of you for gathering here today to celebrate, support, and praise Tara. This feels like a gift to hold Tara's book in my hands, close to my heart, and I know so many of you feel the same way. On behalf of all of us, I want to thank Tara for the gift of her poetry, the gift of her attention on and off the page, her insight, her generosity, her curiosity, her unrelenting connectedness to the living and the dead. Thank you, Tara, for your art and for the depth of your living. I've been invited here to read as Tara's mentor, although if anything, we are sister poets, and I see myself as the messenger. Still, I would like to dedicate this reading in honor of mentors, those that come before us and illuminate for us that spark of awe and inspire within us a wholehearted bravery to travel our path. I'd like to open my reading with a poem from Robert Hass, my first mentor and forever courage teacher. This poem has been with me and has been my back pocket poem for nearly 30 years now. I carry it with me and turn to it often when times are dark, when I'm lost, when I don't know what to do, and it always offers me instructions for living. In this way, the poems themselves are the mentors, the teachers, the benevolent guides. So, opening with an untitled poem from Robert Hass. We asked the captain what course of action he proposed to take toward a beast so large, terrifying, and unpredictable. He hesitated to answer, and then said judiciously, "I think I shall praise it." So the next couple of poems are reimagined sonnets for my mom and my dad. Everything my old man said. Everything my old man said came true. All those fates he feared for me. An unsteady man, the unclear life, something seeming to break most all the time. But it's a pattern in nature, story of earth. What are continents, if not evidence of what once was whole? Or how when a lake dies, it becomes a meadow, knows waves and the wild grasses sway. Look, it's Plover, her broken wing act, as brilliant and brave as lizard's sequined tear-away tail. Dad, walk with me your garden, for death is only middle of a long life. Rest your hands on the bath-wet heads of your grandsons and see how the rascal in you survived through me and pulses still. Give us your blessing this day, for everything beautiful is broken, and for our belonging within, among it all, praise, praise, praise. The Good Haunting. She tells a great story about our family's first Halloween in the States. How we piled on the plaid polyester couch, watching costumes crisscross outside the window, not knowing what to do when the doorbell rang, the many maybes we came up with for why. Not just children, she'd marvel, but adults even. My mom, who in her 60s first reached her arms up and threw a home-sewn bumblebee, wiggled her stinger in the mirror in front of me. That year, my boys grew brave enough to knock on witches' doors. I remember that fearful excitement, that trying to figure it out. I remember the bounce of springs as my mom launched off that couch, her hurried certainty to strip the sheets from the bed we all shared, oily aniseed scent of us released with a roll of her wrists, coming to settle like snow on me. Her steady fingertips feeling through the fabric for faint lids of my eyes. Black-handled scissors. One by one she made us ghosts, set adrift on a sidewalk sea. Timeless bride to love's fierce and nebulous tide. The next poems celebrate the mentors that we cross paths with in life, however long or short, vast and small. Mercy. After the water main burst and the sewer flooded, the rats came. Hunching from unfamiliar daylight, they limped beneath the jasmine, then burrowed into the basement. From the orchard, they ate fallen apples. Then, certain of safety, they slept. My first husband was born in the year of the rat. One cold morning, he found opening the hinged lid of the old feed bench a shivering nest of shredded plastic, and in it the pink points of noses searching, their eyes still sealed with membrane. I asked him to please get rid of it, to take care of it, and to this day I do not know what it was he had to do. Perhaps drown them in rainwater before tossing out translucent bodies to be eaten by crows. Or maybe he spared them, lifting gently the entire mess of their lives to tuck high in the dusty shed roof beam. Maybe it's possible to come through disaster miraculously intact. The next poem goes back to the only winter I did in Antarctica. I did 8 science support seasons in Antarctica and one and only winter at McMurdo Station. First fruit. I don't remember anymore how many of us wintered on the ice that year, the name of the dishwasher who sang a cappella all day, or which of the Southern Cross axes point where. I don't know how to separate one story from those that intertwine, how to avoid the risk of reaching into the crevasses of my mind. This morning, the boys crossed streets and ran to the house of friends. Now I'm cranking out waffles and hot dogs, everyone's children circling the kitchen. Soon as one is fed, another holds out an empty hand. I think there may not be enough to go around, but keep asking, who's hungry? One by one they stand, cheeks stuffed, still chewing, crumbs fall to the floor. I don't understand the overlap between something continuing and something already having come to an end. When the first flight of Windfly arrived, each of us winterovers was given a brown paper sack of freshies. Imagine the soft heft of the bag, residual jet fuel exhaust lingering like fog. Imagine the months working, every moment nighttime. Then the hairy green plumage by which a strawberry is pulled out. Think red dimpled shine, all of it brightening and swollen like a healthy human heart. I want that reliving that comes from reaching into darkness, that first fruit, the thick smell of rain on tarmac the day I redeployed, those early years when I thought there would be no story ever without you in it. And the boys, at last, touching their tongues to the corner of their mouths, walking through the doorway, nodding, that was good. And this next one is a prose poem. I think a lot about deep time, and I think a lot about climate crisis and parenting and mothering. And so this one is called Some Kind of Utopia. The crystalline sting in my nose, dry burning down my throat, tears flushing my eyes. Even though it happened 20 years ago, I still remember my first breath in Antarctica. All those years on the ice, I described it as some kind of utopia. No one hungry, houseless, unemployed, no poverty, no violence, no unmet needs. It's strange to think now that what we studied was how very old the planet is in relation to the dystopian quickness with which humans could end all life on Earth. Once I taught the boys how to tell time. I told them that if the whole history of Earth were squished into a 24-hour day, modern people wouldn't show up until the last 3 seconds. Brushing my teeth in their bath steam, my index finger squeaked on the mirror, drawing the short and long hands so close together that I needed to use my fingernail. Above it, I scrawled 2, 3, 5, 9, 5, 6, and a stick figure human. We chew pink, dissolvable tablets to see where bristles leave debris on our teeth. Bright ooze staining their lips, the boys pretend to be vampires, lunging at each other's neck. Take care of your teeth, for heaven's sake. You'll need it for eating roots and sucking minerals off rocks. The next day, E bites into a crooked carrot pulled straight from the ground and loses a baby tooth. He cries because it fell somewhere in the vermiculite, and now there will be nothing for under the pillow. Mom, did you know there are more connections in your brain than stars in the Milky Way galaxy? Did you know if you're a main character, you have plot armor so nothing bad happens to you? In Susan Sontag's 10 Rules for Raising a Child, number 9 is this: make him aware that there is a grown-up world that's none of his business. But my 9-year-old can explain viruses and how they mutate. When we shelter in place through the pandemic, he tells us, did you know there are 3 types of time travel? In one loop, anything you do doesn't change anything in the timeline. What time is it? They ask, yawning. It is 8:30 at night, and Earth is a giant cold snow cone. For hundreds of millions of years, we pillow talk while the world fluctuates between deep freeze and retreating ice. I'm terrified at the rate of which change happens. I kiss the boys on their sweaty heads, a breeze blows in the open window, and life explodes from the sea. And this last prose poem is for Tara. It's one of her favorite pieces that I've written, and I think perhaps because the versions of us that we were and the versions of us that we will be are also our truest, deepest mentors. Flower Girl. I used to buy myself flowers. Back when I was in college and would walk around with $2 left in my wallet after working 2 jobs and borrowing books from classmates and library stacks, hardly ever buying them at the student store. I gave myself an allowance on Friday. It was my business what I did with it, but often I'd be eating Honey Nut Cheerios, if not for the leftovers of cold pasta I brought home from the Sicilian restaurant where I worked nights. It was run by 3 siblings. The 2 brothers cooked and cussed. The youngest sister waited tables downstairs, I upstairs. No offense, she said, but we don't want people walking down the street looking in and thinking we're a Chinese restaurant. Everyone always said she looked just like Julia Roberts, and her claim to fame was a non-speaking part in a Verizon commercial aired during the Super Bowl. A block away, a bakery cleverly called Just Desserts. There, on top of the glass pastry case, closest to the till, a woven basket of decadent day-old beckonings. If there happened to be a saran-wrap slice of the layered lemon cake with lemon cream cheese frosting in the basket, you could be sure I'd spend $1 on that. Next door, a vintage shop, where once I stopped in my tracks for a turquoise blue dress, a repeating textured flower pattern, and a popped seam along the zipper beneath deodorant swaths where someone had tried it on, found it unzip-uppable, and had to turn it in outside over their head to peel it off. I was on my way to the burrito place. A taco would have eaten up $2, but I took home that dress for $1 instead, and enough left over to cover a 99-cent movie rental, filling 2 small red stripy waxy bags with light-bulbed warmed popcorn. I ate my dinner, sitting on the floor, watching Steve Martin on a small TV VCR combo in my new torn dress. And across the street, a flower cart tucked between 2 brick buildings, a young Lebanese man pacing the sidewalk, thick scarf above the collar of a leather bomber jacket, his hands shoved into shallow pockets. Seeing me, he'd pull out a fingerless gloved hand, hold up his index finger to mime the act of remembering, surprised to catch the thought before it escaped. On a shelf beneath his cart, he'd pull out a bucket, and from it arrange into his left hand a bouquet of broken-stemmed, bruise-petaled, overly opened flowers for me. Sometimes, if the week had been unusually cold and wet, if he were getting fresh flowers the next morning, it'd be huge, and I'd carry it away in the crook of my arm, walking home, practicing my prom wave, screw in the light bulb, sweep, and then turn. Most days, he'd hold the humble flowers straight-armed in front of him, the other hand held over his heart. Every day, I'd give him $1. Everyone was an actor back then, trying on things we knew weren't quite our size. I used to buy myself flowers every day. I don't know what has changed, that there are no more flower carts, or what. Thank you.